Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is going to be a different type of vlog. It's going to be basically me telling you what happened. Let me just start from the beginning. So, when Aria was about 3 days old, we had her midwife appointment. My midwife came to my house and she weighed her and like did all that stuff that they do, just like a normal checkup to make sure she was okay, gaining weight, all that stuff. Turns out that she had lost about 2 pounds since birth, and that is a dramatic weight loss, especially since she was only 3 days old. She was about 5 pounds 16 ounces and she was born at 7'10". So that was really concerning, scared me a lot, scared the midwife. She was like, that's not something that happens. Not very many babies lose that much, and so that freaked me out a lot. Also, she did the jaundice test. Caden's waking up. Alright, so Caden's joining me, but they also did the jaundice test thing on her to check her bilirubin levels. I think that's what they're called. She did that thing on her forehead where it was kind of like a laser thing, and it told her that she was pretty high up, like off the chart, with her jaundice. So she sent us to the emergency room right away. So Dan we got all the kids, we got them ready. We went to the emergency room. They said that we would probably be there overnight. So Dan and Caden just dropped me and Aria off. So me and Aria went in. They took us straight away, obviously because she's 3 days old. So she was taken right away. They weighed her, did all that stuff, and then we were sent into a ER room. When we got into that room, a bunch of nurses came in and they were weighing her. They were hooking like those things up to her chest, asking me all these questions about like how much she's been eating, and I said not very much because she wasn't eating. She wasn't interested in eating. She would sleep and sleep and sleep, and it was almost impossible to wake her up. It was almost impossible to wake her up to feed her. So it kind of felt, while I was in the ER, it felt like I was being judged, and I felt like they thought I was a bad mom. Like, why weren't you feeding your kid? How did you let your kid lose 2 pounds in 3 days? And I don't even know what happened, to be completely honest. Like, she was eating, not a lot, but I was told that that was normal in the first couple days, that they don't eat a lot. Plus my milk didn't come in, so I wasn't like overly concerned that she wasn't eating a lot, but I guess I should have been. I don't know what happened. I knew she looked orange, but I didn't know how bad it was. But luckily we went in when we did. It was the most, like, I'm gonna cry just thinking about the experience. Honestly, I don't want to cry. It was horrible seeing your 3-day-old baby, like newborn baby, being on a table being pricked. She was screaming uncontrollably. I couldn't do anything. I felt useless. I felt like I just couldn't help her, and seeing her cry, I was bawling my eyes out in the corner. I was trying not to cry, but the tears were just rolling down my face. I felt like just bawling. I didn't want to leave the room while they were doing it. I just didn't want to leave her. Even though I couldn't do anything, I felt like I just needed to be there for her. But they were putting an IV in her, and they were having a hard time, and they were just taking blood samples, a lot of blood, because they wanted to test for so many different things. And just that went on for probably about 45 minutes of her just screaming and them trying to hook her up to things and just take her blood, and it was horrible. After they got her all hooked up to the machines and the IV and everything, they immediately put her in an incubator because she could not regulate her temperature. She was extremely cold, and they just put her in there. And I was just still sitting there like, oh my gosh, like what's going on? Is she okay? I'm worried. After she was a little bit warmed up in the incubator, it was shift change, so new nurses came in and they didn't take enough blood the first time, so they had to retake her blood. So that, why couldn't you just get it the first time? I don't know, but they didn't get enough, so they had to retake the re-get blood so that they could take more tests. So there she is screaming again, and yeah, my poor little baby. I just felt absolutely horrible that she was there. And yeah, after they did that, they told me that they wanted to do a spinal tap on her because, and I was like, why? Like, this is not why I came into the ER. I didn't come to do all these tests. Like, she has jaundice and she lost weight. What are you doing? So they're like, we just want, since she can't regulate her temperature, we want to make sure that there's no infection. So they wanted to do a spinal tap, which you take fluid out of your spinal cord, or I don't even know, but you just remove fluid and then you test the fluid. So I was really scared for that because if they messed up, she could be paralyzed. And I was just like, plus it would be extremely painful, and what are they gonna do, strap her down on her stomach to a table? Like, that's not something that a baby should have to go through. Yeah, so that was really hard on me and her. Obviously, she's the one who went through it, but as a mother, like, so yeah, a little while later they came in to do that, and they made me leave the room, which, I mean, it's good that I wasn't there to see that because I really don't want to have that image in my head and hear her screaming like that. So yeah, they made me leave the room, which also made me realize, like, it's bad. I was crying when they were trying to put an IV in her and prick her feet for blood, and now she's getting a spinal tap and I have to leave the room. So yeah, luckily my friend Ashley came. She showed up shortly before the spinal tap happened. We went to the food court and we sat there for like 30 minutes, and then we came back and it was done, and they said it went well, and she wasn't crying. She was sleeping when I got back, so that, I mean, I'm not saying she didn't scream through it, because I'm positive she did, but when I came back she looked fine. So I'm thankful for that. But that came back negative. She didn't have any infection or anything. They also, before the spinal tap, I didn't write down any notes or anything. I wish I had, like, what happened at what time, but during it all I just couldn't write down everything. Like, I was too into, like, making sure she was okay than worrying about when stuff happened, how to update you guys. But before the spinal tap, they put one of those blankets under her, the light blankets, the bilirubin blanket thing that helps her jaundice, and they also put a mask on her face so that the light wouldn't damage her eyes. So she was laying on that for a while, but while she was in there, the mask kept slipping down over her nose, so her nose was like smushed against her face, and I was scared that she couldn't breathe. And I kept, like, since she was in the incubator, I had to keep opening the door and like trying to fix it, but it was really hard. And then she started screaming at one point when she was in there, and I felt completely hopeless. Like, no one was coming in. Like, she was crying and nobody was coming in. No one seemed to care. I couldn't get her out. I couldn't hold her. I couldn't comfort her. I couldn't try to feed her. I couldn't do anything but stick my hand in there and like pet her head and like try to hold her hand. And she was not happy. Like, I couldn't get her to calm down, and I started crying again because I'm like, what do? I can't even help her. I feel hopeless. I feel helpless. I can't help her. I feel like I'm useless. It's the worst feeling when you see your child suffering and you can't do anything about it. So after all that test stuff, we were in the ER for we showed up around maybe 4 p.m. and we didn't get out of the ER room until probably 12 in the morning. And on the way up, since we had to stay overnight, we were going out of the ER up to the peds floor, so the pediatric floor. And on the way there, we stopped to get her a chest x-ray, which is also another traumatizing thing that I did not want to see. So I stayed in the hallway. Caden had a chest x-ray when he was about 1 year old. He might have been a little under 1 year old or a little over. But if you don't know, they stick them in a plastic tube thing with their arms up like this, and they're in a tube and they just scream because kids don't know how to stay still, so that's why they stick them in those little tube things. But I still have, like, I'm still scarred by seeing Caden screaming in one of those things. I did not want to see her in one of those things too, especially since was 3 days old at the time. Don't do that, honey. So I stayed in the hallway. She cried for a little bit, but it wasn't like screaming. Like, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be, but I didn't see her in that because I just didn't want to see it. And then we went up to the peds floor. So when we got up to the peds floor, the nurse that we had was really, really nice, and she showed me around. First, we put Aria in her incubator thing with the light over top of it so she could start her jaundice treatment so that she could get better faster. So we put her in there, and then she was sleeping. And then the nurse took me around the floor, showing me everything, like where you like she got me a breast pump and showed me the linens and the kitchen that I could go in to get food. Also, there was a sterilization room where you sterilize your breast pump, and the water fountain thing and all that stuff. Just showed me around the floor, and then she let me go to sleep. So during the night, I think that was when they let me start feeding her, but we started feeding her formula because my milk hadn't come in fully yet. It was just starting to come in the day that we were at the hospital. While we were in the ER, I could feel my boobs hurting, and filling with milk. So that's why I got the breast pump, because I knew that I needed it. I didn't know how to get it out, and we weren't going to be able to breastfeed for a while, so we bottle fed, and then I would pump as much as I could while we were there to save, and then they would put it in the fridge and then bring it to me when it was time for her to eat. We fed her every 3 hours, and yeah, we fed her every 3 hours, and they kept upping the dosage or how much she was taking because they really wanted her to gain weight. And some of the nurses were really nice, and they offered to feed her for me at night, and other nurses didn't really offer, or I would say that it's okay, I want to, because I didn't get to hold her very much since she was in the incubator. But in the morning, they checked her jaundice levels. I believe they took more blood to check, I'm not sure, but they checked and she was clear. She still had a little bit, but she was at a low enough level that it was okay, and that she didn't need to be in treatment anymore. Also, when we were in the ER, they did a urine test where they put a catheter in and they took some of her urine and then they tested it, and apparently it came back with a urinary tract infection. The nurses were kind of confused because 3-day-olds don't get urinary tract infections, so they were thinking that maybe it was wrong, but they started treating her for it anyway. So they put her on medication for the urinary tract infection, plus she was on 2 different medications. I don't really know exactly what the names were. Penicillin or something like that. I don't know. I don't want to say because I honestly don't remember what she was on. But she had 2 medications going in her IVs. One every 6 hours and one every 8 hours. I never found out if she actually had a urinary tract infection or not, so I'm not really sure, but I'm thinking she didn't, or if she did, it cleared up pretty quickly and she no longer has one. So I thought that we were going to be able to leave in the morning because that's what I originally was told, plus her jaundice levels were down, but they wanted to monitor her for another 24 hours after to make sure that her jaundice levels stayed down. So we stayed another night,